Here is a quick view of a sample that I have written for you to model the discussion post for this week. All of these questions are to help you come up with some ideas for what you want to address in your close reading paragraph about one of the assigned texts for this week. Now, my sample is not about one of your assigned texts, but about a poem that we will be reading later in the semester, because I wanted to give you your own sense of thought and agency with reading one of the assigned texts. So I didn't want you to just copy my thoughts and make them your own. I want to see what you think about the assigned texts. So what I have posted in the discussion post reflects what is on these handouts. So for more detail, or for a graphic organizer where you can jot down some of these ideas before you start writing your paragraph, take a look at those handouts if that works best for you if you are a visual learner. So I have not fully completed every detail of the formatting of my sample, but I will post this for you. You can see that I have put this in Times New Roman 12 point. One thing that if I highlight my line spacing, one thing you will see is if I come up here above paragraph and look at line spacing, I need to remove space after paragraph. Look how that jumps up. So you see it's a little wider than it is now. So don't have those extra spaces. So if you see one of these options at the bottom that says remove space, then you have space that needs to be removed. So click that. Make sure you give every writing assignment a creative original title. Make sure the title is centered. It should be the same font as the rest of your writing. It should be the same spacing. Notice that I have quotation marks only around the title of the poem, as I used the title of the poem in my title. And I do not end with a punctuation mark. Your title should not be a sentence. Make sure you capitalize the major words of your title, and certainly the first and last word of any title. And make sure that you say something that is intriguing with your title. It's your first chance to get your reader's attention. You can use your title as the subject line of your discussion post if you should choose to put it in that way. And I will go through and show you how to do that. So you can either copy and paste all of this in, or you can apply it as an attachment, or both. And I'll show you how to do both. So what I came up with when I was doing my close reading and answering the questions, and really the big questions are going to be your focus. You don't have to answer every little question that comes with each of the bigger questions. As long as you address one or more of those questions within the big question for each section. So it kind of follows in line, at least with mine, as to what each of the big questions is asking. So the first question is asking you to basically summarize the work you're reading. So I have done that in the poem I Am by John Clare. The speaker struggles with feelings of abandonment that accompany a sense of feeling unknown to anyone. And then I expound on that a bit. Feeling seen and heard is how one might feel known by others, but the speaker feels no one cares enough to invest that much time or attention in knowing him or her. And then I'm getting ready to back that up, my summary, what I think is important, or the essential idea of the poem. I'm going to back that up with some proof, which we call textual evidence. And I used a poem intentionally so that you can see how to quote lines of a poem. And I actually used 2 lines instead of just one. I really just needed the one line to make my point, but I wanted to show you how to quote more than one line because it's important to show the line breaks. So let me show you what the poem looks like. So I'm going to be quoting lines 2 and 3. So see the line breaks after lost? It has a colon here, so I'm going to leave that colon. I'm also going to leave the dash at the very end, which you'll see. If it ended with a period or a comma, I would not leave that on the end of my quotation. So that's just a general thing that comes with using MLA format. So again, I'm quoting 2 lines, and I need to honor the line breaks with a /. So I introduce my quotation with a dependent clause, which means I'm going to need to introduce it and then connect to the quotation with a comma here. If I used an independent clause, something that could be a complete sentence by itself, I would connect that sentence to the quotation with a colon, the ... But I did not. Mine's a dependent clause. The sense of abandonment and isolation is conveyed from the beginning of the poem when the speaker says, see, I need more. That's a dependent clause. It depends on more to complete the sentence. So here's what the speaker says. My friends forsake me like a memory lost. That's the end of the line, so I use a space, a /, a space, and continue with the next line. I am the self-consumer of my woes. And then I close the quotation after the dash, because I will leave a dash, but not a comma or a period. And then I will give the lines and then the line numbers. And there is a period after the parenthetical citation. Okay, so the stuff in parentheses, the period goes after that. Notice I say the speaker says as I'm introducing the quotation. So we cannot assume that the speaker is the poet. So a poet comes up with a character and speaks through that character. So it's a made-up entity. It's a character just like a fiction writer would give. So even though Claire's experiences are similar to what the speaker is saying, always qualify your assumptions about who is speaking, whose thoughts these are, by giving credit to a speaker or a persona of some kind, and not that the poet says. You could say the poet writes because the poet is writing, but the poet is not necessarily the speaker of the poem. So we have Claire's use of the term self-consumer has 2 meanings. So when you're doing a close reading, pay special attention to specific words and really zone in on those. So word choice is going to be super important as part of the imagery, especially words that have more than one meaning. How does the double meaning add layers of meaning to the overall poem? So Claire's use of the term self-consumer has 2 meanings. It can mean that the speaker is the only one experiencing his or her woes because no one else cares to share that burden. However, it can also mean that the woes are consuming the speaker's self. By using a word with more than one meaning, Claire's poem continues with a tone. So here's one of those literary terms, literary devices. You want to address some literary device. I could have said self-consumption as a metaphor for how we burden ourselves with our own woes. It can also mean how those burdens consume us and are destructive in that way. Something's consuming you, it is taking from you or devouring you. It's a very graphic word choice there. But I chose tone, which is perfectly fine. You can use tone as well if you want to. Claire's poem continues with a tone that is consumed. See, I even used consumed to continue that sort of idea. Consumed by the sense of loneliness and isolation that culminates in the speaker's contemplation of death. So in one little reference, I acknowledge what happens by the end of the poem. So I'm not giving a full out summary of the whole poem. So you don't want to give a summary of your work. You're analyzing. You're taking one little teeny bit in a close reading and putting magnifying glasses on that little bit to say how it impacts the rest of the work. Thus, Claire's word choices are integral to the theme of See? Always proofread. Let's see what I need to fix. Thus, Claire's word choices are integral to the theme of maybe the destruction such feelings of isolation can have when what most people want is to be known by at least one other person in this world. Yeah, so I could even continue to say something about loneliness. So your last question in your close reading list of 4 big questions is, how can other people relate to this? So even though the close reading questions tell you or ask you about your connection, make it more general, because in academic writing we're trying to stay away from using first person. So even though I understand a sense of isolation, because we all do, it is a universal thing. Like I said, my experience with feeling isolated or feeling unknown by people is the same as your experience with that on at least a basic human level. So it's a basic universal experience, universal truth. Now, make sure you do a works cited. For the sake of discussion post, you don't have to do the page break, but you will need to for bigger essays, and I can show you how to do that. If you want to do a page break, put your cursor at the end of your paper, go to Insert, and go to Page Break, and it will break the page. I'm going to end up copying and pasting this to show you how to do that into the discussion post. I want you to notice, though, that work cited is what I used because I am citing one work. Cited means quoted, and I've only quoted one work. I have also posted for you on Blackboard the work cited for Some 40 Tales of the Afterlives, the short story subjunctive. So you will have that work cited for you. So just look under where I have posted that story. Now, copy and paste it to the discussion board. So let me go to our discussion board. Hopefully we won't run out of time. Where are we? I need to go to Student View and see what you see. So I just click the blue link. I create thread. I'm going to put the subject, or I'm going to go ahead and paste this all into, and I'm going to keep formatting. I'm pasting it all into the text box. And then I want to copy and paste my title into the subject line here. And I could just put John Clare's I Am. I just want something with the poem's title or my work of literature, whatever one I'm focusing on. I want the title in there so my classmates can see quickly which work that I'm reviewing or talking about, so that they can quickly go through and see which ones are pertinent to the review they're seeking. That's how we're going to use discussion posts. Feel free to email me with any questions. Click Email Miss Morris. You can send that email there. Signing up for the text messaging is also useful.